Everything all right? Yeah.
I'm more towards the right
That's
side
it.
of things.
He's all
but-
set. Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Charlton Water and Sewer Commission meeting, February 24th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Charlton Town Hall, Senior Center. First order of business is minutes of the water and sewer meeting.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes of February 10th, 2020 as printed.
Mr. Chair, the minutes that are in front of you tonight, if you turn to page 2, you'll see a highlighted section from some changes that Sue made today based on your request. So if the commissioners would just make sure that that addition is okay, and then just approve them as presented, that'd be great.
Any comments? Ladies, gentlemen? Any objections? Hearing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, and Jen, you abstained,
I
correct?
abstain.
Okay, good.
Oh, nobody seconded.
Who seconded the motion?
All set.
He did?
Dave did.
Okay, good enough. Warrants.
Make a motion, we accept the warrants dated 2/24/20 as follows. Osterman's, $959.21. Harbor Controls, EQ Tank 1, was off an approved motion from 6/3/2019, $2,750. WB Mason, $13.91. McClure Engineering, waterline construction reimbursement, $610, for a grand total of $4,333.12.
Go a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, on discussion. Mrs. Boria, explain the encumbered amount and the payment amount differential, please.
Zach's here for that. VFD for EQ Tank 1, we encumbered $1,500 and the bill was $2,750.
I believe that was due to the PLC that the SCADA system was tied into is kind of an older system. So what was quoted ended up taking longer than intended because of some problems with communications. So that was, an additional day was needed to get it wired in.
Okay, so you're saying is this $1,100 to $1,200 overage is just based on time, on labor time?
Yeah, having the SCADA, the guy in for a second day.
Was that a legacy issue from the previous software?
So this was the wiring the VFD onto EQ pump in the EQ tank 1. That was yeah, we installed the VFD and it was just an additional day to get the programming done, to get it communicating with the SCADA system.
Okay, any other questions? Is that in line, $125 an hour?
That's what they charge for the dev.
Yeah. All right, we should make note of that. Okay. Any questions, comments, gentlemen, ladies? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. We have any abatements to talk about?
No, sir.
No abatements. All right, then moving down the list, at 6:40, we have the January monthly operating report from Viola. I believe that's you, Zach, and John. Thank you.
Good evening. Cover the MOR for January 2020. For plant personnel, Just want to point out, Mike Mitchell recently passed his grade 5 exam, so it'll be a grade 5 operator. And as well as Drew Allard, who just passed his grade 4 exam.
Zach, could you gentlemen just introduce yourself?
Sure.
Just so that we do this for people at home. Thank you very much.
Zach Donahue, project manager.
John Oldley, Vice President of Operations for Bueller.
Vincent Masterson, Assistant Project Manager.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
So for health and safety, no incidents. Monthly safety checklist completed. Our training in January was HAZCOM, or Hazard Communication, what we need to know. For compliance, there were no exceedances for the month of January. Yes, including zinc. For operations and maintenance, monthly checklists were completed. Weekly generator full load exercises were completed. For pump station activities, all pump station alarms were tested. Pump station's full load generator tests were completed. MTAs were sampled on January 2nd as well as January 19th. On January 7th, the 2 remaining Rayco cellular dialers were changed out to the Sensaphone dialers. So there's no longer any Rayco cellular dialers in our collection system. We did the wiring and programming in-house. On January 23rd, we had Bigelow Electric come out to North Main Street Pump Station for a generator alarm. We were getting an alarm for an oil pressure alarm. When they came out, they ended up finding water in the fuel tank. I believe it was discussed at the previous meeting. We had them pump out the contaminated fuel, and they also repaired a plugged fuel line. Any questions on that?
Zach, what was the origin of the water?
So at the beginning of the year, we had, what was it that we have coming in? Charlton Oil came in, and they filled up some of the fuel tanks in the collection system at the generators at the pump stations. And we found out that on the back side of the building that the pump station has, there was a fuel cap that was left off and exposed.
Okay, now I recall.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We fill the fuel tank ourselves now with the fuel truck, the fuel tank and the fuel pump that's in our utility truck. And when we do that, we fill it from inside the station so we can keep an eye on the fuel gauge. So it was something that kind of just wasn't seen, wasn't apparent to us. So.
And how many days of the month do you operate the generator?
The generator runs once a week.
Once a week, so approximately 4 times a month.
Correct.
Okay, and how many gallons of fuel does it usually use?
It doesn't use a heck of a lot. We probably
6, 8 gallons, 10 gallons?
I couldn't tell you off the
Oh,
top
so
of
it's
my
not a
head.
big deal, you can easily do it from the tank that you have in the back of the truck?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
We had to change out the fuel pump, we had to get it certified, and then we started using that as a regular
Okay.
method of fueling.
However, if it were to run during an actual power outage for a duration of time, you'd use a little bit more. But the weekly checks are for
Right.
like an hour.
Right.
They usually burn between 2 and 3 gallons an hour at most, especially if they're not under load.
And this would give us more of an in-house control of the fuel that's going in there, as
Sure.
far as water content, things like that. But it does have an oil and, a water separator on the fuel line.
Sure.
Yeah.
Diesel generators.
That's part of the
typically
monthly
do.
service, to open that up and check it?
That's part of our twice a year that we have Bigelow come in and service it. They inspect all the filters and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not certified diesel mechanics, so to speak, so, and I'm not suggesting we can't look at things, but we really don't want to be
Yeah.
responsible for we hire a company to make sure that they're operational 100%. So we wouldn't be changing filters ourselves, right? Car oil is a little bit different, but it's just typically we just don't do it in-house. So, so what happened? The fuel company that filled it left the cap off?
Yeah. It's on the back side of the hut, so it's not very apparent. So fortunately, we found out the hard way. So
Is there any recourse for us? Or is it one of those we don't know, they don't know kind of?
There's no proof.
and it was
It was
a
over
while
6
ago.
months of time with the law. Who knows if someone
Yeah.
climbed the fence and.
Could have been vandalism
Try
or
to
something
steal
like
it.
that.
We've actually had that happen in other places.
Yeah.
Okay.
And where we wanted to get it taken care of as soon as possible. We felt the easiest solution was to have Bigelow come in because they were also willing to dispose of the contaminated fuel, so what they ended up quoting us verbally ended up being more, it ended up being less than what that bill actually came to. So unfortunately, when they were there, they found a plugged fuel line as well, which added to the cost. So
And did they say what it was plugged with?
they said it was plugged and it had to be fixed. I don't really agree
It's probably
with it.
sediment, you know, I mean, sometimes.
I don't know if it was something that was stirred up in the process of pumping out the contaminated fuel.
It's not uncommon for fuel tanks to get sediment at the bottom. There's usually fuel filters on them,
Is that the original tank from 20 years ago, or is this a new tank?
No, it's original.
Oh, it's the original, because they just took the top off, which was a smaller generator, and then put on the newer, higher,
No, this is North Main Street.
oh, we're talking North Main Street?
Yes.
Yes.
Different story. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. For grinder pump calls, on the 6th, we had 231 Sunset Drive. This is the continuing ongoing issue address. Rubber gasket on the check valve keeps getting damaged. We thought that possibly there was something going on. We found that there was we thought that there was a bolt that was causing the damage, and we were very careful to, when installing the pump, to avoid the bolt from catching on the rubber gasket, and even with us being sure that we weren't damaging the gasket on install, the gasket still ended up getting damaged. So we're unsure of if somewhere on the slide that the gasket slides down, if there's something below the water level that we can't see. Our plan is to get Slims and Berthium to come in and pump out the basin and inspect the rail down lower inside the basin to see if there's something down there that's causing it. But we're just still waiting on scheduling that. So.
This is the one that you put together several times and keeps
Correct.
happening.
Yeah, the rubber gasket keeps tearing.
This is the one where the slide rail was replaced last year. It overflowed, and the check valve up at the street needed to be replaced, and also the slide rail, because the check valve up at the street needed to be replaced, and there was back pressure coming from the main line. The PVC where that horseshoe kind of mates up to was deformed a little bit, so we had Gothier change out that slide rail as well inside of the chamber.
We thought what we were seeing was damage from the bolts that hold the rail in place at the top. So we were very careful to make sure that when we were installing the pump that didn't cause any damage. And we were sure that when we installed it, it didn't occur, but the gasket still ended up tearing. So
How long did it run afterwards until you knew there was a problem?
it's lasting about a month.
We haven't heard yet, right? Since,
No.
so it's been 2 months now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's probably been 2 months for this last time, but yeah, we still
Can you
think that
put a
this.
lockout tag on it?
Yeah, we we put something in place to make sure that it wasn't something that was removed or anything.
So you know it wasn't?
We know it wasn't.
Okay.
It was done in a very specific way, so we're sure that it's getting damaged somehow, some other way, so.
So you know somebody's not trying to pull that thing in and out, right?
Correct.
If I may, when the pump that has, let's call it, the male housing on it, when it slides down the rails, then it fits into the female housing, and then it makes its connection. Is that a fair assessment of what goes on here?
Yeah, it's not really a male-female connection, it's more just as it comes down, the two pressures, the two surfaces made up against each other.
Okay.
Um,
So what they do is they converge,
Yeah.
because it's on an angle, and that angle allows it, so that they end up
it's-
coming to a point to where,
It's more that the rubber gasket that we're having problems with that tears is, has some flex to it, so as it slides down the rail, it slides past it and mates up against it. So it kind of has some give. There's a spring behind the gasket that pushes some contact. So we don't know if down low there's a bolt that's a little bit proud of the rail that's snagging. So the plan is to get somebody in.
I'm thinking almost out an artesian well, 200 tetanus adapter. What it does is just hook it on, slide it in, and that's it. It's all set.
Yeah,
It's similar.
similar.
Yeah, these, the way they're typically designed is there's an angle at the bottom, so when it reaches a certain point, the pump kind of turns in. Is that how that works?
No, this
It's
one's,
actually
this,
like a knife?
yeah, this one slides down the rail and the gasket's being pressed out a little bit, so as it slides down to its resting spot, it slides up onto the surface and mates up against it. So it's kind of just a pressure fitting between the two.
Now, and this was, that portion of what we're talking about here was part of the rails, when the rails were replaced, that housing also was replaced?
Correct. Well, the rail is what the housing, or the flange slides up and down.
Right.
So, yeah, if there was something that was done improperly, or if there's something that's an effect of the work that was done there, maybe that would be causing this.
It could just be a defect in the rail itself, but
Yeah.
as that rubber flange slides by, because it's spring-loaded and there's pressure, it might just be
Right.
snagging
Snagging on
and
something.
tearing. But the rubber's pretty rugged.
But it's always tearing in the same exact location.
So the next time this happens, you're gonna pump it out?
Yeah, we were hoping to get it before the next time it happens, but just weather and timing, we haven't really had a great time to get out there.
The only problem is to change that rail, you have to dig around the outside of the chamber of the tub to disconnect it and then install it and reconnect it outside of the chamber, so it's not that easy to replace.
That pump, for the most part, it hangs on the rail, but if the rail wasn't there, it would sit on the floor of the igloo, whatever you want to call it, correct?
It would sit on the floor of the basin
Right.
if it had nothing to attach to.
Right, and when those pumps come on and off, but especially on, how much torque is there?
Pretty minimal.
Really?
It's not a whole lot.
All right. Again, I'm just thinking about the alternative of how you would do, for instance, a ejector system in an effluent tank. You just have the pipe come up, put a plastic union in it, tighten it up, say goodbye, done.
Yeah, I mean, this is not an issue at any of the other locations, so I
Yeah.
think if we get it to the way it was intended, I don't think that this would be an issue any further. So I just think we have to inspect the rail and see if something seems out of the normal.
That output pipe, is that an inch and a quarter, inch and a half?
I think it's inch and a half.
Yeah, I believe it's
Inch and a half.
So at least
Yeah.
inch and a half, maybe 2 inch.
Okay, okay, I haven't seen twos out in the field there. I've seen an inch and a quarter, because again, that's the whole point of that, because that has to travel all the way down Sunset Drive and up Westview to get to Route 31, and that's when it spits out when it halves and it goes from there. So there's quite a bit of pressure there that you have, and this house is close to the end. If I'm not mistaken, maybe 4 or 5 houses from the end.
2 or 3, yeah.
Right, so, and that pump certainly can push it, but, again, I'm sure Zach, you guys will figure it out.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's definitely a tear. It's not like I don't think it's anything that we'd see from like overpressure or anything, so I think again, if we just pump it out and inspect the rail and determine if there's something on the rail, I think that will be all we need to do. I think we'll find something pretty obvious, so I'm hoping we can get that taken care of soon.
But in the meantime, it's working fine.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
We had 6 dig saves for the month of January. For additional remarks, we just received word the end of last week that our replacement torque tube adapter shaft, the part that recently failed on our Comag clarifier, should be delivered by middle to end of this week. Been in contact with the contractor who's going to do the install. They're going to come out once the part's in to do the install. When they're on site, they'll be able to determine. We're told that they'll be able to determine if the failure was due to an alignment issue. So if it's something that we determine or they determine that could have been prevented on their end, they are willing to work with us on the pricing they said. I'm not sure what we'll find, but they are willing to work with us. So hopefully it's something that can be installed and up and running soon. As of January 14th, Windows 7 is entering its end of life. After that date, Windows will no longer offer security updates for Windows 7. Our concern is the SCADA computer that we have. It's running Windows 7. We had, I'm sorry, what's his? Jeff, the IT guy for the town. He came out, said that the hardware on the computer would support Windows 10. But unfortunately, the SCADA software that we have won't run with Windows 10 the way it is. There is a way to update the SCADA system to the most current version, and that will work with Windows 10. The least expensive way of doing that is we sign up for an annual service agreement. With the software provider. That allows us to update to the newest version, and the service agreement costs about $1,000 for the annual service agreement. After that update, we could let that service agreement lapse after the first year. We don't have to renew it again. But the other option is to purchase the new software and licensing, which would cost roughly $5,000. Yeah. So I definitely feel like the best route would be to go with the annual service agreement to get the software updated. We could get the computer running the latest version of Windows. We could get the SCADA software running the latest version of the software. And that should be good for some time. So there might be some additional cost I'm assuming there'd be some additional cost. We probably have to have Harbor Controls, who does the SCADA work on site, performing the upgrade to upgrade the software to the latest version. But yeah.
First question is, what happens if we don't update?
Just a
system is
security
vulnerable.
risk.
Vulnerable to what?
A hack.
The Russians coming? I mean,
Somebody
Well, yeah.
taking control of our SCADA system and controlling the plant.
not gonna happen, statistically.
It's our job to point out the vulnerability.
Okay,
for
right,
it, so
right, again,
we decide not to.
again, I'm not speaking for everybody up here, just,
It's like any other
Mount them
version of Windows. Once they stop supporting them, if you have any problems with the driver or anything like that, there's no way to like, install anything. So, but I'm aware there are computers still running on XP. But again, you're just at risk. And because SCADA is so integral to what that plant runs by, more than most, it's just a vulnerability we think you should be aware of. But to Zach's point, to enter into the service agreement for $1,000, even though we typically wouldn't do that, it gets you the upgrade included. If you were to just pull up, buy the software off the shelf and load it, it's $5,000. So if you do decide, it would be our recommendation to do the service agreement.
I guess my point, Mr. Chair, is you'd also say that the town probably would never get hacked in there.
lay over here, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
but, no,
Now that you're past.
who wants to hack the sewage department? But,
Well,
Somebody
I've
who
sat
wants
in
to-
on some very long and lengthy EPA and Homeland Security
it's-
seminars on just that issue. So,
and maybe it's me personally having a problem feeding the monster.
I get it, believe me. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
Money's in the software, absolutely.
This is next January we're talking
No. This is
about. So it's
past.
already lapsed?
It's already vulnerable.
Okay.
And at this point, in talking with Jeff, it's still free to upgrade the Windows software from 7 to 10. So the cost would be for updating the SCADA software. We could update the computer, but the SCADA software wouldn't function.
Who else does this besides SCADA for what we do?
SCADA is just the
term for it.
terminology. It just stands for
Oh,
supervisory
it's not a
control.
specific brand?
No, no. We do have a specific brand of software,
Yeah.
and that's iFix. Is it
Yeah,
Rockwell?
Rockwell.
Yeah.
So who's Rockwell's competitor? Or competitors?
There were several,
Yeah.
but everything is programmed for that software. So if you were to,
It's matched up.
Yeah, if
you
you
would
were-
have to rewrite the entire SCADA program under a new software, and that would be $100,000.
No.
Oh,
It
yeah.
would.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, they have to write every line of code, every
For our sewer
picture.
department,
Sorry?
for our sewer department.
I don't think you could do it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if it's extremely expensive.
We're talking about replacing the SCADA with a different software?
It's a program that's basically made specifically for the Charlton treatment plant.
Right, right.
They build it from scratch, basically.
So if you were to go with a different software, they'd have to write a new.
I don't want to waste any time on it.
I'm sorry, but it would be like $100,000
Yeah.
to go brand new. Because it's all hours. It's people at $125 an hour just sitting there.
And then you'd be locked, that wouldn't get you out of proprietary equipment, you'd just go into some,
Just be switching
a
horses.
different proprietary
Right, yeah.
company, so.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the software and the licensings are very expensive for the.
Yeah, and like I said, the issue isn't the software is the problem, it's the Windows program that's the vulnerability. But once you upgrade the Windows, then your old software doesn't work on that computer anymore.
What did we get from SCADA of either 12 or 18 months ago? Didn't we do something with them?
No, historically, you guys have had, when Woodman and Curran developed your software,
Right,
correct?
yeah,
There was a
yeah.
lot of issues with the PLCs working
Yeah.
together, and you guys had challenges. We brought in our SCADA people, and they solved that incompatibility problem they had between the PLCs. You know, you had one old PLC, one new PLC trying to communicate. You may recall that. All those problems have been resolved. The only issue we're talking about today is simply that the Windows operating system for the actual computers is no longer supported. So if you have any issues with that Windows computer, whether hacking or driver issue or anything like that, Windows isn't gonna give you something to fix it.
And we have one computer down the plant, it's SCADA.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah,
I
and
think
that-
that's what we replaced.
Yeah, we were-
a while back.
We're
We
looking
just-
at, we're looking at we asked you to add redundancy and have a second computer,
Yeah.
which would require a second license agreement, and the cost was, it was expensive, but
Yeah,
it
it was
would have given
about-
us redundancy.
I think it was like $5,000 for the computer and the software licensing. Yeah.
So it's really because the SCADA is the heart and soul of that plant, because everything is controlled through that SCADA system.
So if we leave the computer system the way it is right now and we stay vulnerable, and something happens in 4 months from now, can't we just upgrade that?
You probably could, but you're doing it at a time when you're down, basically.
And the upgrade at that point would probably cost, it'd probably be more of the order of the $5,000 where you're not upgrading what you have, you have to purchase all new.
So you're saying is, what's the time period that we have to upgrade?
We're already beyond the point that Windows will,
Provide updates.
provide updates. So we're beyond its life.
Well,
as they
actually,
refer to
we're
as.
not getting it, what we're doing is we're actually changing the program, we're going from XP to 10.
You're going from Windows 7
7 to 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a Microsoft, it's what they do. They stop supporting
Yeah.
previous versions and
Yeah, but
roll
can we
out
go
new.
from 7 to 10 in 5 months from now, if something happens?
Well, if the computer fails,
You're down. I mean, the plant's not operable.
Well, I guess my concern would be the cost at which we would get there after something happened, that we've already learned $12.50 this evening for an extra day's work, and anybody comes in and works on the computer or software. I mean, software upgrades are just a part of life today. We're just gonna have to pay.
The cost is one
Doesn't mean you have
concern.
to accept it, but I hear what
You
you're
don't
saying.
have to accept
Yeah,
it, but
yeah,
you gotta
yeah.
pay.
One of the bigger concerns is if someone truly does hack the SCADA system and changes the controls, and all of
Yeah.
a sudden that we're not treating like we're supposed to, and who knows what we're discharging until we
Yeah.
come in the morning. And then all of a sudden, what we're facing with the DEP is 10 times worse than what we're facing trying to fix the SCADA system.
Yeah, I also feel like this is inevitable, like, you're gonna have to spend the money on it at some point, whether it's when the computer fails or something happens with the security of the computer, or, you know.
I'll make a motion that we approve the $1,000 for the new software upgrade.
Now,
Got a motion in a second. Go ahead, sir.
that was just the price, that's just an estimate for the price. We still have to do a couple things on our end in order for the official quote to be provided. And then I'd have to get some pricing from Harbor Controls if they feel like they have to be on site, which I'm assuming they would be. That would drive some of the price up. But I just wanted to make you aware about it because Jeff brought it to our attention that you know, he would look into upgrading the system. So we did some research to figure out, you know, what our best option is. So I just wanted to provide you with that information. I could get that pricing for you pretty soon, but we have to reach out to the manufacturer to get the pricing.
Motion, which one?
So either that or you could put a cap on the motion.
Well, I mean, Zach has to get more information.
Yeah,
Is that
I
something
think it'd be
we'll be
prudent
able
for us
get our
to
next
come
meeting?
back to you with a quote.
I think we're determining this is something that has to be done.
Yes.
It's kind of like non-negotiable. Pay me now or pay me later, but you're going to pay. And the thing is, later, it may be a lot more.
It'll be a lot more.
Yeah.
Okay, and
And just-
just so, the company that you named, which was
Harbor Controls?
Harbor Controls, so they're the ones who
They're the
manufacture the
$120.
software?
No.
They're the authors? No?
They're the integrator.
The integrator?
Yeah. They're the people that take the software and develop your SCADA inside it. They call them an integrator. They're the code writers, basically.
Let's just-
Are they Veolia's preferred vendor?
Really have a.
Yeah, we don't have a specific vendor, you know, depending on location, travel, you know, you don't want to send someone 8 hours to get, so they're pretty local for us.
So they're
Their
the
quality
ones-
work is good.
Harbor
It's who we
Patrols are
use.
the ones with the most familiarity with
With
our
your
plant.
plant.
They've
Yeah.
been overseeing the SCADA
Yeah,
system that we
they have backups and everything of the treatment plant in case something were to go wrong. They'd be able to, you wouldn't lose the whole SCADA programming and everything. That's who I've used in the past.
They're the ones that solved all the problems we had.
Humor me here for a second. If lightning strikes and blows up our SCADA computer, do we have to close, or would you operate the plant manually?
You could operate the plant manually.
Okay.
But it would have to be 24 hours a day.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
It's consequences.
It's not like,
Understand.
it's not like if that happens, we have wastewater running down the streets. It
Right,
will,
okay.
it will take a lot of
Yeah.
operator
Yeah,
input,
yeah.
but it will function.
Okay, okay.
Veolia would be that, we would respond to that. We'd bring
Of
the
course.
people
Yeah.
when necessary.
We've had that in Sturbridge. We've had that in Sturbridge. There's been issues with electrical and part of the plant shuts down and we're there monitoring everything
Sure,
until it's up and running again. But
okay.
never like to be in that position.
Have we beaten the horse enough times?
I can get, I'll get more information for you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have a proposal for your consideration
I
in the
appreciate
next
it.
meeting.
Okay.
I think Zach still has more in his report.
Yes.
Yeah. Last month when we were pumping out rainwater at the North Sturbridge pump station, we discovered there was a broken check valve on the pump 1 discharge pipe. We ordered a replacement valve and we had that changed out by Slims and Berthium on the 12th. And now everything's functioning as intended. That went smoothly. The headwork.
I'm sorry, was that in January or in February?
That was in February.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, we ended up ordering 2 check valves just in case when we got down there, we found out that, you know, the other valve was in poor condition. We didn't end up needing to use it, so it's on the shelf as a spare at the treatment plant. The Headworks building sump pump system work that was approved at November's meeting has been completed. We purchased, installed, and then had LaFleur Electric come and complete the electrical work. Originally estimated the work to be $1,750. We were able to get the project completed for a little bit less. It was a little over $1,500, but that's up and running and everything is working really well. And I wanted to discuss our zinc pilot testing. And some just when you thought I was nearing the end. So the zinc removal pilot that we've been running at the treatment plant, it began in November. Since we started running, there's been no effluent zinc violations. Just want to summarize our findings. Initially, the pilot began with a product called Epic 58. We injected the coagulant before a COMED process. We also added a sulfide-based chemical in that location to aid in metal precipitation. The results seemed promising. We saw a rise in turbidity, which created concern about UV disinfection. So we tried a similar product called Epic 58. It's just a higher strength version of the product. This performed extremely well, and we had no concerns about turbidity or disinfection. The results looked promising with a really good drop in total zinc and in copper. However, this came with an increase in aluminum levels. While the aluminum results never exceeded the daily maximum limit, We were concerned about being able to meet the lower monthly average limit. We were hoping that with fine tuning and finding the correct doses, we'd see the aluminum levels level out below the limit, while still maintaining a good zinc and copper removal. Unfortunately, after months of adjustment and testing, we've decided to switch back to the original treatment method of ferric chloride. The pilot proved successful in the purpose of removing zinc, but the elevated aluminum levels really made it not a viable option. If you flip to the attached graph to kind of explain what you're seeing there. So the solid red is the zinc concentration. There's a vertical line there. To the left is the ferric previous usage. To the right was once the pilot started the pack usage. You can see the dotted line for the red is the zinc limit, where we were constantly, floating above the limit. Once we started to use the pack, you could see the solid red, the zinc dropped out considerably. Saw really good results, but you can see the solid blue, which was the aluminum, had a steady incline as well. The dotted blue line is the monthly average limit for aluminum. So there was a period of time in the middle where things looked like we were going to be able to get the adjustment tuned in, but as we continued on, the aluminum levels started to build in the system, and the level climbed beyond what we've determined to be a safe level for our permit. With fine tuning, we tried to back off on the pack, which is an aluminum-based coagulant. And at a certain point, the aluminum no longer was going down. It actually kind of turned and went up because we were losing performance in the treatment. And that's when the zinc started to climb as well. So unfortunately, there was a period of time in the middle that our zinc was looking really good, but we were unable to get that aluminum level down into an acceptable range for us.
Zach, what went on between Thanksgiving and Christmas to where it seemed like it was dialed in?
We think that had to do with the levels kind of building in the solids. And when we saw right around where it was kind of low there in the middle, was where we were seeing some high turbidities, and we were concerned about some other things as well. When we were using the initial Epic 58, we saw some turbid effluent. We were concerned that at that level we'd have problems with the disinfection, which kind of seems to be problematic when the flows are up a little bit. We had some issues last spring with that, and also at that point we didn't really see ideal phosphorus removal.
Yeah, unfortunately, what you don't see on the chart is we didn't want to complicate. I mean, there's a lot going on besides just zinc and aluminum. But what Zach is alluding to right now is that at that optimum, or what appeared to be a good dosage, we weren't seeing the low-level phosphorus removal that we need. Keep in mind that right now our phosphorus limit sits at 1, but April 1st it goes to 0.1. So at that, even though it looked optimal for zinc and aluminum, it wasn't optimal for phosphorus, because the aluminum is really the coagulant designed to take out the phosphorus. It helps bring down the turbidity so that when you add the sulfide, it attacks the zinc itself. So the sulfide is actually the chemical that removes the zinc. So although it doesn't say the whole picture, the reality is that at that time there were other things that we wouldn't be able to continue to operate at without assurance of meeting permit for phosphorus.
Yeah, and where it was below the winter permit level for phosphorus, it was above the summer. So we knew we couldn't run it throughout the summer and meet permit at that level. So as the doses went up. We used a different strength, it performed much better, but that's when you really start to see the skyrocketing aluminum levels.
Yeah, so basically what we did is we had to keep increasing the aluminum, even though we were at a good zinc level, because our phosphorus wasn't where we needed it to be. But as you can see, as we approached getting better phosphorus removal, the aluminum now starts to climb. So it's just challenging to get all three to kind of work in conjunction with each other without exceeding a limit. One of the reasons why we choose this time of year to pilot is because you have a higher phosphorus limit. It allows you some flexibility. You wouldn't try to pilot this over the summer because you would just run a risk. But there is some optimism to discuss, so I'll let you
Yeah.
finish.
So kind of building upon what we've learned in this pilot, we obviously know that with the sulfide we can drop the zinc levels if we have the right coagulant. There's another product on the market called cerium chloride, which we believe is worth trying. It's another coagulant like the ferric in the pack. The cerium chloride is used for phosphorus removal. But unlike the pack, which contains aluminum, the cerium has, it's not associated with any effluent limits. So there's no risk of negatively impacting our effluent compliance by using it. It's relatively new to the market. It's not commonly used as commonly used as iron or aluminum-based coagulants. But it's proven technologies, and more facilities are starting to use the product. We feel like it's definitely worth a shot. We can get a tote of it on hand.
In a nutshell, because there's no limit for it in the effluent, we can run our dosages as high as we need to in order to bring phosphorus in compliance and still remove the zinc with the sulfide. That's the optimistic view of what we're saying.
Has this, this combination been proven in Sturbridge?
In Sturbridge, we were very successful with aluminum, the limits higher, and zinc, which is aluminum and sulfide, which is what we wanted to bring here. It works over there, we thought it would. It does work here, except your aluminum levels lower than theirs, therefore we can't get the dose low enough without violating aluminum.
All right. So again, what we're doing here is we're working behind the big curtain here and trying to adjust this thing.
We're trying to find a chemistry that works.
So what I'm reading here, interpreting is, this is a request from Veolia to fund the $6,000 that you need to bring this in and give it a try?
Yeah, we're trying to solve the zinc problem.
Yeah, again.
That's our recommendation is, we went to our technical people and we said, okay, ferric's not working, aluminum's not working, what else is out there?
All right, try this.
And
Okay,
they said
ladies and
cerium
gentlemen,
chloride is
looking for a
the new horizon.
motion to fund this experiment.
I make a motion that we not to exceed $6,000 for chemical and lab testing for cerium chloride.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Pretty much this is, get this thing on the road.
Yeah.
The goal is to get it piloted before April 1st.
Okay, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Yeah. So that concludes Zach's report, but I do have some the reason Vincent is sitting next to us, I do have some news. It's with a mixed emotions. I want to present to the board that Zach is taking a promotion within Veolia. So at the end of the month, end of March, he'll be transitioning to a new project manager position. So I'm here to announce that Vincent Masterson will be stepping in as Zach's replacement for Charlton. Vincent comes to us from Sturbridge. He actually worked with Zach for many, many years. He holds a grade 6 wastewater treatment license. He's been in operations in Sturbridge like that. Vincent also comes to us with a strong water background as well. He holds a distribution 3 and a treatment 2, but he also has already passed the distribution 4 and the treatment 3 license in water. So I think he's going to bring an additional level of abilities to support the Charlton project, particularly as you consider, your your water system possibilities, if you will. So, Zach's not done a great job for us in Charlton, which is why he's been tapped to lead another project for us, but I think it really speaks to the kind of what Veolia does, which is develop the next generation of treatment managers, and Vincent's going to step in and do a great job for us.
All what Veolia does is tick off their customers by
Oh.
changing.
It is. I'm trying to put the best spin on it.
No offense.
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
All right, Zach's been great. I'm sure you're going to be as good. But the thing is so we don't have any option here, do we? John?
I tried.
The good news
Yeah.
is, rather than lose Zach to someone else, he's staying within the Veolia family.
Okay.
And he's going to be available to us at any time in any way.
Okay.
Still works for me. So and we're also going to be able to transition over a period of time. Vincent's been studying with Zach for the last couple of weeks, and for the entire month of March, they'll be working side by side. So the transition will be nice and smooth. And Vincent brings a great deal of experience and qualifications with him as well. So we're not going to let the project slide. And in fact, it'll be Vincent's charge to push it forward. So big shoes to fill, I understand, but
Best of luck to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
it's good to be
You're
young.
going to need it.
Yeah, I know.
And so hopefully you won't get jumped out in the parking lot.
No, I understand. It's a mixed
But,
blessing because there's
yeah.
great opportunity for the future wastewater
Yeah,
operators.
yeah,
I actually wish I was 20 years younger.
yeah, good.
But I'm glad to keep Zach in the family. He's agreed. He still lives in Sturbridge, so he's still going to be close by. These guys have worked together for years, so they're actually friends. So it's not like,
Yeah, I mean, it was not an easy decision, but, I definitely.
it's the right decision for his
Yeah.
family. I mean, it's a nice promotion for
Yeah.
Zach.
And I enjoyed working with all of you, so.
Congratulations, Zach.
Thank you.
Again, we're happy to see you go. But as time goes on, people need to move on if opportunities come. And again, if you've earned it, then grab it. So you're next when that opportunity comes.
Hope so.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Zach led the meeting off with that both Mike and Drew have achieved even higher levels of certification while at Charlton, so you can just clearly see that we're driving, the next generation. We're really encouraging our people to get certified and get trained.
This is a contract year, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Next year. Could be a contract.
Yeah.
Well, we're all part of an organization, Veolia,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, you will get.
And I'm only kidding.
No, I
Just,
understand. I
because-
understand. But, like I said, it's a great time to be in the wastewater, and we're desperate for people, so, the next, any recommendations, it's hard to find good people and recruit them
Period.
into the
No, it's
business.
period, no matter what industry. It's hard to find good period. People.
Yeah, we actually started an internship over in Southbridge just for that reason.
How's that working out?
Good. We're going to, we actually transitioned one of our interns into a full-time position.
There you go.
So there'll be another
That's great.
internship coming up.
So I think it's important to note, as John said, Vinny has his water licenses, and looking at what we'd have for a system, it would be a distribution system grade 2 only, because we don't do any retreatment at this time. So if we were to go to a consecutive system and Veolia were to bid, to have that, say, 1.5 people to operate the system and share that half employee with sewer would work fairly well. And if I'm not mistaken, there's still Shane, who's in Sturbridge, who's going to help, not
Yeah.
service so much project manager.
Yeah, he's
but
going to be a
still work with
mentor
Vinny.
for Vincent. Shane Moody, my superintendent in
Yeah.
Sturbridge, who both of these gentlemen trained under, has agreed to work as a mentor and a daily contact for Vincent.
So while Zach's leaving, Vinny's coming in as an assistant project manager. Shane will be involved as well to help make sure things go smoothly here. So as we think about going, again, different discussion, but as we think about going to consecutive water supply, that transition might not be as encumbersome as we might have thought. Yes, we have to go out to bid. Yes, we have to make some things happen, but the possibilities of it happening and working well, I think is getting stronger.
Yeah, no, it was certainly a consideration from Ed Vinson as well. I mean, with his water background, having him already on site and operating the treatment plant, you know, it definitely puts us in a good place if there's an opportunity. So.
Okay. Anyone have anything to add? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
John?
Not getting rid of me.
John's gonna stick around for the next item
Oh, okay, good.
while he's here.
You thought you were leaving.
Okay, I'm sorry, you're waiting for me? Okay, and the next item for discussion is the possibility of increasing our sewer surcharge rates.
Yes. So at previous meetings, we've discussed the possibility of increasing certain sewer surcharge rates. I have reached out and informed a couple of the customers who are affected by those surcharge rates that we're going to be discussing this and it may have an impact on them. Some of them, the people who I was originally in contact with have since, they haven't moved on, but they've changed areas and they've redirected me to some different people who I'm trying to make contact with and they're aware of our discussions, but I'm trying to get some time either on the phone with them or face to face to let them know what's going to be happening. I've also talked with John and had some preliminary discussions trying to figure out how to justify or how to come up with a cost increase that you can justify and explain as to why we're doing it. And in having those discussions with John, he's given me some preliminary information regarding the cost to treat BOD versus the cost to treat ammonia and kind of what that ratio is, and maybe using some of that information that when you have your public hearing to justify the increase that we've talked about for the ammonia surcharge. So, John, if you just want to hit on some of that.
Before you do that, John, I just want to make it clear to everybody is that what we're talking about here is we're potentially scheduling, if not as a matter of fact, a public hearing on March 9th to specifically cover
Sure.
these rate increases.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
if we listen, yeah, if you listen to what's presented and you want to move forward with
Right.
possibly changing those rates, then
Yeah.
we need to schedule that public hearing, and I will provide you with more information at that time for you to kind of justify whatever increases you're considering and decisions you're going to make.
Am I misreading this?
No, I just wanted John to give you some
Well,
information.
no, I definitely want John to give us the information. I just want to make sure that it's crystal clear that tentatively, we will be going forward, if everyone agrees, to advertise for a public hearing
Yes.
on March 9th, and the purpose of that public hearing is to raise rates. We're required to do this by statute if we are going to raise the
I
rates.
believe so.
And we have to give them so many days' notice of the public hearing, and at that public hearing, whatever the time it is that we schedule it for, anyone who comes and wants to speak, they're able to speak to it. That's my understanding.
And this is pertaining to surcharges, not the actual rate.
At this time, the only discussion or the only inclination that the board has given is that, yes, you only want to discuss increasing surcharge rates, not the actual residential user rates at this time.
Okay.
Just so the average
Sure.
person listening at home doesn't say,
Thank you.
jack up the sewer
That's
rate
good.
on us. That's not what this is about.
Okay. We good? John,
Sure.
it's all yours.
So Peter asked me, you know, from an industry perspective, how do we quantify what it typically costs to treat BOD versus ammonia? And it's well understood, it's well engineered in terms of what those metrics are. Primarily, it involves power, about energy, providing oxygen, and treatment capacity for the ammonia. And there are some pretty well-established benchmarks that we use typically. And so just for an ease of understanding, I suggested to Peter, if you look at what industry benchmarks say, it's 25 milligrams per liter of ammonia is equivalent to about 110 milligrams per liter of BOD in terms of just overall similar effects on cost to treat.
Was that 25 to 110?
Right. So if you look at your surcharge for BOD, domestic being about 250 milligrams per liter of BOD before your surcharge kicks in, that's typical, that would equate to approximately 50 milligrams per liter of ammonia. So at that point, you would then say, on an equivalence basis, a surcharge above 250 per milligram per liter equals a surcharge above 50 milligrams per liter of ammonia. And then you could apply the same dollar surcharge per pound at that point.
Well, as we discussed earlier, the cost to treat from that part forward is still that same 4.5 to 1 ratio.
Correct.
So the cost we charge to treat BOD, the cost to treat the ammonia should be 4.5 times the amount per milligram per liter.
Peter, that ratio is by dividing 25 into 110?
Correct. It's approximately 4.5.
Yeah.
Say
Thank you.
4.41. So I think that's where, I think the benchmark for household hazardous waste that we use before the surcharges start for BOD is 250 and for ammonia is 40 milligrams per liter.
40, okay.
The difference is the cost we charge per milligram per liter after that, or the amount we charge per pound based on the milligrams per liter over those base metrics. I believe currently our BOD is approximately $3.58, but our ammonia surcharge is only $4.07, $4 and change.
Okay,
So it's not the same 4.5 or 4.4 to 1 ratio. So we're not, what people are getting away with being able to provide us with extra ammonia and not pay the true additional cost it costs us to treat that.
Okay, so is it just a simple math contemplation?
Well, it would be
here?
my recommendation that you use some benchmarks to establish that. I mean, you could go through the plant and apply all different types of formulas for how much oxygen it actually takes per pound of ammonia, and then you'd have to look at horsepower and blower. So, you could go into like a real engineering study on exactly how much your plant it costs to treat. But I think in this particular case, it would just make sense to use just industry standards and just industry benchmarks, similar to the way you do with BOD. That makes sense?
All we need to do, yes, all we need to do is just do the arithmetic.
I think if we look at what the surcharges are for BOD and the charges that are associated with what we see for the increased levels of BOD, they seem to be a stronger driving factor to help us try and convince those users to pre-treat. The ammonia is not the same. So I think if we keep the BOD as the benchmark and adjust the ammonia to be the same as that, then we can try and start to have the same effect for those higher levels of ammonia that we're seeing from those customers. But again, I think I'll work with John over the next couple of weeks and try and get a much cleaner presentation and some more information for you to consider as part of that public hearing for when you are ready to make this decision. Again, this was pretty much just to kind of throw the information out there, make sure you wanted to move forward, direct me to advertise the public hearing, set it up as part of our next meeting, and then we'll follow through when I present, again,
Yeah,
a much cleaner version of kind of what we've just roughly discussed.
Go ahead, Russ.
One of the key points of that discussion for me or that presentation is the facts of what the increased limits, how that happens to create the problem for the town that should be addressed by the user. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
If
so
we can have those numbers so that we can say, okay, Here's what happens, it spikes and basically now it takes away and there's no storage left, so that,
Correct, so I think that's where,
break it down simple, that's
Yep.
all. So the average person can say, okay, I understand what's going on here, and yeah, we're behind this proposal, and this is what the town should be doing to make that user come into compliance.
Right.
so-
And,
and
I mean, to your point, it's using up capacity, not necessarily flow capacity,
Right,
but
exactly.
pounds capacity that the plant has. Because you have to be able to treat at all conditions. So,
anybody have any other information they want to
It's
see
just,
included?
just the deliverables for this March 9th meeting is that I don't think there's any doubt that the rate that we're charging for ammonia is too low. It's not representative of the cost, of what it's costing us. So it is going to go up. The question is we need more information. We're going to rely on John and working with yourself to come up with what seems to be the fairest rate for that. And it will also should show some balance with what we're currently charging for the BOD. And again, as far as that 4.1 factor. So, because, and also we would need, Peter, I would think the commission would need to have as much information prior to the meeting so that we're up to speed on exactly what's going to be presented, and it should have a clear path to the results of which way we should be going, so that when we do get in front of the general public for this, that by then hopefully we'll be totally convinced and we'll be behind it to support it.
Sure, so whatever will be presented to you on that Monday night, I'll make sure it's part of your packet for Friday so that you're not surprised by any new
Yeah,
information.
or sooner,
Or so.
or sooner, if in fact you definitely come to some conclusions.
Okay.
Right, so.
Just a question for you, John, do you guys deal with other towns that have similar users in similar situations at all, that you know of?
in my portfolio, this is the only plant that has rest areas that have the same sort of impact that you have,
Okay.
simply because of the conditions, the low flow, but yet the strong strength. But ammonia removal is a big concern at all of our facilities.
Sure.
And I think getting out in front of this is going to benefit you down the road, because if nitrogen ever becomes an issue for you, getting rid of the nitrogen, which is the ammonia plus the other, is going to be astronomically more expensive than what we're talking about today. So I think getting a handle on the ammonia surcharge now will be a good deterrent for not having to deal with a problem later if you end up having to remove nitrogen as part of a permit change, which, as we all know, is what the EPA is pushing for throughout.
And we know our problem's only going to continue to grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just one direction. Yeah.
Yeah, but ammonia and nitrogen, besides phosphorus, are the key components that all of our customer clients are struggling with. The plant that Zach's going to is about to spend $50 million addressing their ammonia problem as part of a permanent change.
I just didn't know if you dealt with any similar situations of a big spike all the time.
Not as dramatic,
Yeah.
but
Peter, may I suggest in the same manner you reached out to the town of Paxton for the water, is maybe reach out to the town of Westboro, because they have a
Service areas.
the service area in Westboro, which is based on the town size and based on that particular rest stop, which is, I don't think it's as busy as R2, but it's almost as busy. Would give you a good handle on, or at least help us to understand how other people are doing what they do.
yeah, there's a lot of research, and I know we did some of it when we were working with Ty and Bond on the flow study, the headwork study. There's several treatment plants I'm aware of in Maine that have run into the exact same problem.
Yeah.
And there's just some good case studies out there about how they have addressed dealing with that heavy load of rest areas on
Right.
the main
Right.
turnpike.
Yeah.
So, It's a, I don't want to say it's a common problem, it's a problem in other
Universal.
places, just in my own portfolio, it's the most common thing. It's the one that is. But there are other communities that are dealing with the exact same problem.
Limit the size on the inspector.
No,
Well, when we met with the gentleman, he said 80% of the people who went to that rest area do nothing but go to the bathroom and leave.
Load, reload. Yeah.
And
Fortunately,
holidays are the big
yeah,
Columbus Day, which is what the genesis of all this is.
we have the ability to require anyone who is over the household rate to, pre-treat.
Yeah, and-
We haven't pulled that, okay, but it's there.
Yeah. And I think even beyond the cost, we know firsthand that it's a compliance issue. So even beyond just the expense of doing it, it's
Right.
having the capacity to actually treat the wastewater.
Right, and deal with it month after month after month, because, Vinnie, you're gonna have to make sure these numbers, Zach, you're out of here. Vinnie, you gotta make sure that these numbers were, under the wire each
And the
month
commission
after
has
month.
made a significant investment already. You've got the RVCs online, you've paid for the headwork study, we've adopted all those recommendations into it, so you've done a lot to try to get up in front of it already.
We've been real good.
You have.
We got all the gold stars
I
lined
don't know if I
up.
go that far.
That's just not
There's
smoke,
still
and
some
that's
more
true.
stuff to be done.
Yeah.
But we're looking at increasing the aeration capacity with some clean,
Alkalinity adjustments.
Alkalinity, and we're maximizing everything we can. I think
The
trying to
automated
address it locally
alkalinity,
is a smart.
the automated alkalinity adjustment, I think, is the next
Right,
big
right.
step that we need to
And when you
find a
look at,
way.
our monthly report, with the total flow of 222,000 gallons, that's about half of what our capacity is.
Right.
But when you look at the weight levels,
The loading.
we're like with, I think it's the ammonia level, we're almost at capacity.
That's right.
So it's insane. And say, oh, no, yeah, we can take 20 gallons. No, it's all about the weight.
And that's not due to the residents.
No, it's not due to the residents. It's
So
due
why-
to some
why should the
specific
residents
uses.
have to suffer?
No, and they shouldn't, and that's why the people who are causing this heavy load need to either be paying for it themselves additionally, and/or possibly receiving a letter that they now need to pre-treat, or to find some other means for dealing with their waste, because they're in violation of our capacity quota here, or at least as far as our formula for what we will accept. So that's it.
Yes, so we'll continue to work.
Yeah, definitely, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Zach, sincerely. Sorry to leave you, Lee. Okay? But
It's
good
not
luck.
done just yet.
Okay.
No problem.
Just here another month.
You here another month?
What was that?
You here for another month?
Yeah, you'll see me for a while.
Okay,
I'll
okay.
be here at more meetings.
All right, so we don't have the Marines come in with blankets and bars of soap, do we?
Definitely a team sport.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Okay. Mr. Gloria, we've got the annual report.
Yes, I've just reattached the annual report for your review and approval.
I make a motion, we accept the annual report as printed.
Second.
Could you repeat that, Jenna?
Okay,
Accepted as
a
printed.
couple more minutes for the rest of us to take a look at this. If anyone has any questions or comments, or you want something added to or taken out, just speak up. Mr. Gagnon, you all set there? What do you think?
I went this afternoon on the computer, so
Okay.
I'm okay with it.
You all set there? Okay. All those in favor of accepting the report as printed? Okay. Unanimous. Okay, moving on to the Stevens Park Road Pump Station. Where are we with that, Peter?
We're just following up on the 2 quotes we received from the local engineers. We have received proposals from DC Engineering and McClure Engineering to design the drainage upgrades to the Stevens Park Road Pump Station. At this time, we have $10,000 in our sewer engineering expense line item. The proposals are for the design of the drainage repairs that need to be done to complete and to be completed to stop the surface and groundwater from undermining the appurtenances of the pump station. After the upgrades are designed, we'll be able to take that design and go out to bid and get quotes from some other local contractors to perform the work. So you have 1 quote to complete a survey and then design the drainage mitigation plan and submit it to the Conservation Commission from DC Engineering in the total amount of $4,200. And you have a second proposal from McClure Engineering to do pretty much the same thing. The existing condition survey, prepare the notice of intent for the Conservation Commission, and design the drainage improvements. McClure Engineering's price starts at $14,000 with an additional task 2 of $3,276. So I would recommend at this time that you would authorize DC Engineering to start the work to design the drainage improvements for the Stevens Park Road Pump Station, not to exceed amount of $4,200.
Okay, you got a motion on the floor for that?
I'll make a motion to award DC the contract for $4,200 to do what was stated here.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, got a second from Mr. Cantwell. Any more comments or any discussion on this?
It's a big difference, Peter.
I'm sorry?
It's a big difference.
It is, and that's why we've bidded a couple times just to make sure it was accurate and they were kind of bidding the same scope of work. So we're getting lucky. I think DC Engineering's given us a fair price. He's able to do it for that and get it done. Again, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to state that I have used DC Engineering for my private business and personal stuff. I believe I might have used McClure as well, and I have filed the disclosures necessary to put that out there.
Okay. We've got a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. I'm going to abstain, and Mr. Jennings is going to abstain. So it's 3, 4, 2 abstentions.
Sure.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay.
To work on that so we can try to get that pump station fixed sooner than later. Water rate study to become a consecutive water supply. At your last meeting, Matt Abrahams was present to discuss his findings from the water rate study he completed. Based on the discussion we had and depending on the base water rate that Southbridge may charge us, it was determined that it may be economically feasible for us to become a consecutive water supply and operate the system that we currently own in town. During the discussion, some questions were asked regarding the backup documentation that Matt used to make his determination, and some other questions about a discussion I had with the town of Paxton regarding them being a consecutive water supply from Worcester. After that meeting, I emailed you the correlating information for your review. I followed up this week to see if there was any other questions based on that information and received no request for further information at that time. So again, I'm just presenting the short report from Matt Abrahams that pretty much says if we can negotiate the base rate of water, a flat base rate water charge from Southbridge to us of $2.50 per 100 cubic feet, we could possibly operate the system and be profitable.
Okay.
If
And the first analysis is the, if I'm not mistaken here, Peter, is that the profit of 117,000? Or is it the, that's without?
So the first table that you're looking at
Southbridge operating?
is right now is based on the revenue of the Charlton customers that we would service if we were to go consecutive from the pump station on Route 169 to the rest of our system. That those customers minus the cost of Southbridge to operate the system nets Southbridge a profit of approximately $117,000. The next table shows that if Southbridge was to charge Charlton their current base rate of $3.30 per 100 cubic feet and just charge us per gallon of water that goes through our pump station, they would make $157,592. If they were to reduce that rate to $2.50 per 100 cubic feet, they would make a flat $120,290. So at that reduced rate, they're going to make more money with absolutely no operational costs or headaches with anything to do with our system from the Route 169 pump station up.
Right, so these numbers are being relative for Southbridge, so,
Yes.
okay. And then when we go down to, towards the end here, as far as the town of Charlton taking over and operating,
Yes.
we have projected surplus, which would be income from 2021, 22, 23, and 24.
Correct.
Okay, which, well, I guess in 2022, which is the high of the surplus income, one of the same here, of $74,000.
Yes.
And then in 2023, it's 66,000.
Yep.
2024, it's 59,000. Why is those numbers declining, Peter?
Because, as Matt Abraham said, partially because your indirect costs are going to grow as our budget grows
Okay.
to the town. And the other part is that he increased our expenditures by 3% each year without necessarily increasing the rate.
Yeah, yeah.
So he
Okay.
so that's where it starts to, and in FY 2022 is the first year where we're anticipating having all the new school loop customers come on, which is why there's an increase from 21 to 22. In FY 2021, not only do we need that reduced rate, but it's also the fact that we have the 78 new customers on Berry Corner Road, plus the Masonic Home connecting in FY 2021. That allows us to be feasible.
And Peter, nowhere in this report does it talk about the one-time connection fee,
No,
okay, which,
we didn't.
It's not part of these numbers.
no, it's not part of its numbers, okay?
No, I didn't. It's a one-time, those are one-time charges that don't help you operationally in the future, so I do not
No,
include those anyway.
Right, it would just help with having reserves, that's all. Okay, so I know for me is, I think the next step to go forward here in making this true analysis is we need to know what our wholesale cost is going to be from our water provider. So I'd like to suggest a motion that we have Mr. Boria go forward and try to obtain that from the combination of the Southbridge Town Council working with the Southbridge Department of the DPW.
So, just a question with that. Currently, 330,
That they have a tiered structure in their base rate, and what we've always discussed in kind of passing discussions over the last 4 or 5 years, whenever this came up, is Southbridge would charge Charlton the base, a flat rate, which would be their base rate. And their base rate increases annually. So for FY 2020, I believe for FY 2020, their base rate is $3.30 per 100 cubic feet. So that was always the starting point. Whenever you ask, what's our cost going to be, it was always thrown out there, the base rate of our tiered structure. There's also the whatever 8-inch meter fee on top of that quarterly, but it's kind of it's minimal. Matt Abrahams included that, but in his analysis.
So Abrams is recommending 250.
Based on the numbers that he ran and what we've provided, yes, at $2.50 per 100 cubic feet. Not only is it doesn't work for us, but again, it also allows Southbridge to make more money than they're currently making operating the system. Again, we're going to present this, and there's no guarantee that they're going to agree to come down that low. So,
Well,
but
I would have no doubt in my mind that they jump all over that because they're getting rid of operating the system and making money. And I'm sure they want to get rid of operating the system, Charlie.
hopefully you're right.
Be careful for what you ask for.
Again, this is.
Well, and that's the thing is that 250 low enough for us so that basically the deficit cost surplus in 21, 22, 23, 24 as projected enough.
You know, you just don't know what's going to happen once you start operating. We could have an issue with receiving water at the pump station that meets, and we would have this.
Meets their level.
Meets a agreed upon level of water quality. And if it's that 1.0 as far as the water, to where the state level is 0.2. Okay. Right. So, which is quite a waste, but we have an issue on one of our legs to where we've got bad water. We have to do a blow-off. And if we do a blow-off, that's on us.
Yeah.
And I remember one time there was a bill of a user who agreed to a blow-off, had a $50,000 water bill. So, you know, again, these are things, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but these are things that we have to think of. And I don't know if the spread is correct for us. If in fact at the end of the year we've got it starts off at $32,000, then goes to $74,000, $66,000, $59,000. That if that's enough for granted, we're going to have revenue that's going to pay for our expenses of operating the system. But it's when those things that we didn't think of that come into play that we're going to have to fund this. If we don't have the funds, we're going to go to town meeting and get the funds. Because there's no backing out. This is like, you know, we own it.
Once you commit, you commit.
Yeah.
The only thing I can comfortably say is that I think there's enough information here for you to make a truly informed decision as to whether or not you want to move forward. The numbers are real, and I think they show it's a clear picture of what we're going to be looking at. The only other thing to consider is with what we're doing at Buffingville, if we do end up developing our own in-town source, we're going to want to operate the system to find a way to use it. So not that it goes hand in hand, but we have a window of opportunity to do this now, where when Buffingville is ready to go in 2 or 3 years, if there's political change or something, you know, whatever, who knows what's going to happen and who's where, this window of opportunity might not be there. You guys have been on this board for a while to know that just having this conversation with Southbridge hasn't always been the easiest thing to do, never mind come this far to be able to actually almost make it happen. So
how long are we locked in currently for a rate? How can that change in the future? So the rate is 330 this year. It can go up so much next year, year after.
Southbridge has historically raised their rates annually.
Okay.
So I think what we would do is, right now, our residents are paying Southbridge rates. What's nice about this, based on the study we've done with Matt, is that this allows us to be cost feasible using the same rate that Southbridge does. So if Southbridge raises their rates across their entire tier structure next year and we're consecutive, we would have to follow and do the same thing. So as our base rate of $250 increases by that same percentage, our whole tier structure would increase and stay consistent with what Southbridge charges. We could always increase it more if need be in the future, if something crazy happens, but to stay fair to the residents who are on our side of the pump station versus those who aren't, I think we want to stay the same rates that Southbridge is charging for as long as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
So that they're not negatively impacted just because we operate our system.
Sure. I mean, yeah, that should definitely be what it was. But my concern would be, if we did make a deal with Southbridge, how long of an agreement could we make for a reduced rate?
That's going to be the devil's in the details. My guess is, not to go into negotiation tactics, but as long as we're not getting $300,000 a year in free cash because we're making so much money because of that reduced rate, then they'd be okay with it. Whether you put some clause in your agreement that says if we become too profitable based on that reduced rate, they can increase that rate to a certain percentage. So that way they don't feel like they're giving away the farm, and they have to answer to their residents as well as to why we got this reduced rate. So as long as our free cash doesn't show up to be, maybe a percentage of the operating budget or whatever we negotiate, that maybe that opens the door for them to possibly increase the rate, so they don't think that they're giving the farm away per se. But something that's going to be fair for both of us. And again, I think we're quite a ways away from that, but we probably ended up there.
All right, so, Paul, you got anything?
No, I think we should just at least, right now, we're just asking Peter to go ahead and see if Southbridge will accept this rate.
Yes.
Certainly, I think we should do that. If they say no, then we're gonna, take this to the table and consider it all over again. If they do, then if they say yes, I don't think we can go ask them, well, would you go for 240?
Well, I mean, I would personally, I would like to question that 250 number and say, what do things look like at just $2?
Well, I think, Russell, if I may here, is that when you look at the analysis, as far as just right up at this block here is where Charlton takes over. If we take over in the 250 rate, then the town of Southbridge's profit would be the $120,000. Am I reading that correctly, Peter?
Yes.
Okay. So the thing is currently, if Charlton and Southbridge both sit on their hands, Southbridge is profiting at $117,177. So after they do all the effort, again, they're going home with $117,000. If they send it off to us, they don't have to do any effort, and they're getting $120. So that's the, I guess that's the carrot that the town council was going to say, geez, this is pretty much balanced, and we're not doing anything, and we no longer have that responsibility of, how many miles of pipe do we have?
Quite a bit now.
Quite a few.
Over 20.
Over 20, going on 30 miles of pipe, and responsibility. that they're responsible for, and we're
The water
responsible.
within it.
Well, the water within it and the delivery of it, all right, and the delivery of potable water. We're responsible for any, major breaks. But what's not in here, I don't think it is, Peter, is the annual amount that we receive from Southbridge in here?
Let me ask you
Oh,
this
one
question.
second, this is important.
That is in there, in that first chart, in the $220,000 of Southbridge's cost to operate the Charlton system.
Yep,
That IMA payment is included in that.
okay, it's included in that, but it's not included in the next chart down below. No.
No, because
So-
that payment goes away.
It'll go away.
Well, the payment goes away, but us receiving $40,000 approximately for doing nothing, or for having the responsibility of repairing any major breaks. So I don't see us using the word profit. I think somehow we gotta take consideration of that $40,000 thing.
Well, I'm gonna ask you this question. So you go to work 365 days a year, you run a business. At the end of the year, you make $117,177 profit,
Yep,
right? Now, I'm gonna tell you, Rob, stay at home and do nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna give you $120,290.
okay. No, it's inviting.
It sounds like,
It sounds inviting, without a doubt.
Why would you ever go to work again? So now I'm gonna offer you this deal.
Well, first, yeah, go ahead.
Instead of going to work 365 days a year and profiting 117, I'm gonna say, don't go to work this year. I'm gonna give you $60,000 to stay home, and you can go somewhere else and work. You're gonna say, no, I'm going to work tomorrow. I wanna make the 117.
Maybe so.
Well, maybe.
Maybe so,
I mean,
because
maybe
they-
you love what you're doing, but.
Well, no, but they're,
With all the responsibility that comes with
Well,
it.
the thing is,
consequence.
they have their own operator that's under contract. And then what they're doing is that operator's world right now includes Charlton. So if it goes away, their operator, they got less work to do. I think it's, what do they dedicate a man and a half?
They say one man.
One man. And so again, so that goes away for them. But the big thing is the responsibility goes away.
That's right.
Right, but also is some people may.
So do their increased operating costs in the future.
Right, but some people who are on the council may look at it and say, no, we don't want to give up that money. And we don't want to give up the fact that we can raise rates and that will grow in time. And especially the growth that's going to happen with all these new customers coming online, which maybe we shouldn't throw that in there, but that would be part of the consideration for them to make their decision to where maybe they want to keep this for 3 to 5 more years and wait for that $250,000 to $300,000 additional income that's going to come from the fees. They may say, yeah, we don't want to wait for that. So,
Well, then their decision's already made.
well, maybe
And it's
so.
not profitable for us to run it. But I know one thing, we're never going back to them and asking them for a lower rate once we offer them a certain rate.
That's difficult.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. King?
So, just to say we're in a good spot, and we're looking at this last chart on the last page, and the fiscal year 2022, we have a surplus of 74,000. Now, that sounds great, but isn't Southbridge paying us $40,000 a year now? So we're really only gonna make an extra 34,000. And the following year, if things go good, it's 66,000 minus the 40 that we already been paid, so we're making 26,000. And 2024 could be 19,000. Seems kind of crazy to me to take on the responsibility of supplying water to all these people for $19,000 a year.
Again, that's a strong consideration. But none of this matters unless we know if, in fact, Southbridge will.
Is that wrong, Peter?
No, that's exactly right.
Okay.
But again, the biggest thing that I want to keep that on point out again is, this is the first time we've had real numbers for you to truly look at and be able to make this type of informed decision based on the report that I was able to work with Matt Abraham, so. And again, not, we talk about 250 saying, sure, Southbridge will be crazy enough to take it, but who knows? So I think until we even broach that discussion with them, you're making a decision, while the numbers look good and they could be real, they're not real until I know Southbridge will say, yes, we'll come down to $200. They might not. They might come back and say,
These prices here are, in the last year, these at the $2.50 rate.
yes.
So even at the $2.50 rate, which we hope they would grant us, in
Yep.
4 years from now, we're gonna make an extra $19,000 running all the water.
Correct.
Just,
Well, then as our system grows, that $40,000 a year payment is gonna increase, because it's based on a percentage of our budget, our revenue versus their revenue. So as we get bigger and create more revenue, we're gonna get a bigger piece of their retail,
so we might not even make that much more, maybe less.
I honestly believe that currently we're in a great position. Southbridge is a town that runs their water system phenomenally. I've been involved in construction and repairs of their system throughout the years and worked with the people who work down there. They do a phenomenal job, and that's why Charlton's lucky to be in the position that they are, receiving the water from Southbridge, which is great water. We've had businesses come here specifically for that water. One of my strong points of trying to get on this board was to ultimately have Charlton be able to stand on its own 2 feet and be responsible for their own water system. But when you're in such a good position as Charlton is with Southbridge, why would you want to sacrifice that? That's always been a big concern of mine. So moving forward to be even consecutive is a huge step that I'm certainly not walking into lightly, and without knowing that there's not only benefit, but great benefit for Charlton. And that's not necessarily all financial. It comes with learning curve. You can learn a lot from Southbridge, we have already, and they've, again, like I said, taken great care of us along the way. Again, one big concern is the end of the line. How do we make sure that water stays good from when they send it to us all the way out there? Right now, they're responsible for that. Again, they work at it. It costs them time and money, and they have valuable people who do a great job making sure that happens. So,
All right, so the question is someone going to make a motion that we have Mr. Boria go and meet with the DPW director and a member of their council team to discuss the rate, one, and number two is, do we direct Mr. Boria as far as what that rate should be?
prior to that motion, or included in that motion, and I guess it would have to be prior to. I would just like to see what the number, or what the numbers would work out to be at $2. I think that's a,
Well, I think all you got to do is take it from a percentage, 50 cents over 250. What is that, 20%? 20%. 10% is 25 cents. 20% would be 50. So what you do is then change these numbers by that percentage.
Be approximately 96,000. If you were to take 80% of 120,000 is 96,000.
So
So if you're saying that going from $2.50 to $2 is a 20% decrease, then
Right.
you'd be at right around 100,000.
So Southbridge's net gain for no effort would be $96,000. And then going back the other way, we're only really adding $26,000 to our bottom line.
20. Yeah.
So isn't the real
24.
question, don't we want to know what number we can buy water from Southbridge at that will
That's what we're working
will
to.
go
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
go consecutive, right? Because
Exactly that.
it's not this number, for me anyways.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, I want a clearer picture of what it looks like
Yeah.
at $2, because I don't think at $2.50 it works.
I don't think at 250 works either.
So-
So I don't, so yeah, I guess you're right. I don't think we can go and have a discussion without knowing what that hard number is.
I can put some tools in Mr. Borey's bag and then let him go to work with them.
I think you can still have the discussion. You can say, Abraham didn't pull these numbers out of the sky. He's done a lot of work, so you can go to Southbridge with these numbers and say, this is what he suggested. How do you feel about it? Are you willing to go with this? And then you can still say, but the sewer commission is not sure it will work for Charlton yet. So you're still leaving the door open, and we're not committing ourselves to 250 a cubic foot, 100
I
cubic
think-
feet.
I think you're right, Paul. I have confidence in the guy that we hired, and I think that we can let him loose and say, hey, we know where everything's at, and you know the sentiment of this board and what.
Put
that's
that
at,
in
so.
form of a motion, Mr. Jennings.
Let me listen.
I will authorize Peter to start negotiations with Southbridge for a water rate to go consecutive.
And leave that open-ended.
And Abraham's is simply a starting point. I'll second that motion.
We have any additional discussion on that? Hearing none? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous?
Go get him, Peter.
Thank you. Well, again, being able to show up there and say that you guys made that vote to open the door and do that carries more weight than me just having
Sure.
a discussion. So thank you. And we'll see what we can do.
Okay. All right, moving on with old business. We've got the water line construction update.
Okay, so the Bay Path pump station was delivered and set on Thursday, February 13th. Albanese Brothers has been working there over the past week or so, and they started connecting the water lines to the pump station and also doing some site work around the pump station. The same with the Overlook pump station. The pump station was delivered and set on Tuesday, February 11th, and they're doing the same thing there. They're connecting the water lines inside the building, cleaning up some of the grading and the site outside of the building, and electricians are working, and they're trying to get that pump station ready to be fired up. As far as the Casella water line extension, the contractor has been in the area decommissioning the private wells of the residents that have been connected to the water line. Jim Philbrook has been overseeing the decommissioning process, as the permit from the Board of Health is required to do so. With springtime almost here, we're going to be starting the water line construction meetings with Kleinfelder and Albanese to talk about the areas of the roadway where the water line was installed last year, and come up with a paving schedule and how those roads are going to get repaved over this construction season. And in the next month or so, Kleinfelder should also be awarding the service connection contract, so that that contractor can start making those residential connections to that water line this construction season as well. The plan is, once the Overlook pump station is activated, we will hopefully activate that entire school loop that went down Old Worcester Road, Morton Station, and back up Muggett Hill Road, and Overlook will have enough draw to get the water flowing through that whole water line. So as service connections are made, that water line will have to be activated in some type of phase setup. So, things are gearing up and we're getting ready to go finish those projects.
In their plan, prior to turning on the water, they will rechlorinate the entire system
They'll
that
have
they're
to
going to turn on.
flush and sample. I'm not sure about the rechlorination yet.
Okay.
They've
As
been
long as their
talking.
samples pass.
They've been talking about not having to rechlorinate,
Okay.
just flush and make sure the residual is where it needs to be.
Very good. Both pump station buildings, from just using my naked eye, over the weekend, I just stopped by. They're both identical as far as size goes.
I believe it's right there.
And I thought it was, I don't know, I guess I would use the word odd, how they used the inlet and the outlet, or how they constructed the foundation for the inlet and the outlet of the pump station.
As far as,
Well, what they did was, no, just imagine this table here as being the foundation. What they did was, in the actual pump station that sits on top, what they did was 3 feet this way and 3 feet this way, the foundation's missing. And what comes out of the ground is the pipe. And then going further on down, did the same thing for where the other pipe exits. Is rather than not eyeballing, but rather the engineer saying, fine, X marks the spot, make sure the pipe comes out, when it comes, drop it on there. Leave a hole open in your station so that you can come right up and you're gonna be within an inch or two. No. And I guess, it's fine, it just looks weird to see, and I know
No, you're saying the whole block is out.
the whole block is out, so
you can
it's,
get down.
and getting more to get down there. Put a picnic table in there, but no, it's not that big. But again, it's rather odd to see it that much open.
they might pour that after?
It's possible, I just.
I can't imagine they leave it open, but.
Yeah. Okay, right, but don't forget, this whole pump station sits on steel beams. So at one time when you look at it, you go, geez, that end, it actually looks, it does cantilever.
Right.
Because there's nothing there, which is,
now.
it's not going anywhere.
Right.
Don't mistake me, but I just thought it was a little bit odd that you pay tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for engineering, and you can't figure out where the pipe's gonna come in and go out.
I will
Which is
follow
fine,
up.
it's just
I can't,
me being me, that's all.
I noticed that as well, I was just.
What, me being me?
No, I noticed that overhang in the foundation, just thought they were
But yeah,
gonna
it's
pour
like-
that after, there's no
it's-
reason to leave it open.
It's like
not
on a
beneficial.
surfboard hanging on 5 or whatever, what are you doing here? So, and they gotta make sure they take all that water from the roofs and put it down the downspouts, and, yeah. My parents' chicken coop was bigger than these places when I look back years ago. But anyways, nice job, everything looks great, and it's been a long time coming as far as getting these things on. So, just one thing, Peter, on that, Masonic Home construction, everything has already been done in the roadway between the pump station and Masonic Home,
Yes.
as far as the piping goes. So it's
They
just a
do have
matter
some work to do up in that building
in
to
the
make
brick,
the connection
to make the
inside, but
conversion.
all of the groundwork has been completed.
Okay. Very good. Any questions? Anybody have anything that they want to bring up that wasn't known at the time of posting? Okay, hearing that, when's our next meeting?
March 8th. Oh, tonight.
March 9th. Okay, which is a Monday evening, and we will have our public hearing that night. Okay, and so, hearing nothing else, I'll accept the motion to
I'll
adjourn.
make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Mr. Gagnon, do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.